Black men uniting will be a supernatural event. I say this because when I think about what's natural, I think about the rules of this modern world that are applicable to other ethnic groups and racial groups that are not applicable to African Americans, specifically African American men. You see this across economics, and you see this across just the value of the Black life in regards to just different murder cases, things of that nature. Where I want to say there was some research um, by a coalition of researchers who specifically look at lynchings in the United States, and they said there were about 70 lynchings that occurred. I think I saw this from the brother Red Pill's channel, Know the Ledge. Salute to Red Pill. The researcher was talking about how from 2000 to 2025 there were about 70 lynchings, and majority of these occurring in southern states. And what the investigators would do, they will rule these lynchings out as as a suicide. So that way, the investigation is very limited. There's not sort of any locking in or zooming into any like DNA or evidence or things of that nature to rule out otherwise. So supernatural means that the rules that apply to other groups, for example, being content. A lot of Black people are very spiritual. So sometimes a lot of the concepts and terms that Black people use, specifically Black men, are out of context, where being content is priceless and it's very important to not covet. However, with the Black condition right now in the African American community and our young Black men, we can't afford to be content like other racial groups. We can't afford to just be passive observers. Whites can be content, Latinos can be content, Indians, Asians can be content because they don't have any urgency of division or just unrelenting crime amongst each other. For the most part, they're a unified front and they function as so. You may have some episodes of division between non Black groups, but not as significant as the African American male. So they can afford to be content. They can afford to sort of be passive observers because they are functioning and operating off of historical foundations of unity and unification that affords them that luxury. So Black men uniting, us coming together is going to come off very supernatural, very out of the ordinary. Jesus Christ was a rule breaker. As much as his whole life was committed to the fulfilling of the law, in terms of human unwritten rules in these social contracts that human beings create on this earth that trap people up, Jesus Christ came and he conquered all of that. Right. I know you guys are familiar with the scripture of him healing on the Sabbath, right? On the Sabbath, we're supposed to rest. There should be no work. Why is this man healing? Essentially, the story of Jesus Christ is also a good portion of human beings with these very carnal, ungodly rules and social contracts trying to sort of like trip Jesus up, trying to catch him up, and for a lack of better words. So Jesus Christ, in and of himself, according to the world's standards, was very supernatural, divine, out of the ordinary. And he did not come here to submit to the rules of mankind at the expense of unifying his church. And Black people have to function the same way. Black men have to function the same way. We need to look at our existence as set apart. We need to see ourselves as set apart. And it's sad because as we progress in the millennium, a lot of younger Black men and Black men in general, they want to be merged with the group. We want so bad to fit in and to be identified with everybody else and validated by everybody else and acknowledged by everybody else but our own brotherhood, by our own people. We need to recognize we are a set apart group. Doesn't mean you got to harass anybody. Doesn't mean you have to have hatred in your heart towards other groups. Doesn't mean you have to be completely just disconnected and cold towards other people. It means that you have to have some awareness around your identity and who you are. You need to know who you are in this world. Every day is a fight, is a battle for your identity. And when black men unite and they come together, it's not going to be off the heels of the rules that other cultures and other racial groups have for themselves or for us. So when black men unite, it will be a supernatural event. Some black brothers are not going to be a part of that conversation. I'm 40, and I even recognize, even among my own peers, there are brothers out there, you can't tell them anything about us uniting. In their mind, we're done. You got these YNs, you know, you can't get a grip of them. We're not going to get any better. It's just a lot of defeatist energy going on amongst our elders and, the unks as we get older and as we age. So as I'm recognizing this as I get older, there are going to be some black men who are just not going to be of help towards the cause of unifying us because of their own mindset, their own mentality. And some of us, as we get older, we're better off keeping our mouth shut. Even in the Bible, it says a foolish man, silent can come off to be wise. It's almost the more you talk and you express a lot of your biases towards us as black men and against your own community, the more you sort of dig yourself in a hole psychologically that nobody can pull you out of but yourself. And part of that unification in the black male community is us having to accept we can't take all of these brothers with us. They're going to have to pull themselves up. They're going to have to pull themselves up because a lot of brothers, as they age, they've already made up their minds. And there's nothing you can do with a human being who's already concluded they're powerless, they're helpless, and this black condition is going to always be this way. There's nothing you can do. In the scripture, it talks about believe all things. And when you lose that belief and that sort of value of what is possible, there's nothing brothers can do for you. We have enough black young men out here we need to focus on. We don't have time we can't afford to put 10 brothers around one brother to convince him of the value of this work. We don't have time for it. So when we use the term supernatural to describe black men uniting, we are pointing to a profound truth. For black men, unity is not a casual, automatic, or passive social process. It is an active resistance that must defy a massive gravity like force of historical, economic, and social systems designed to keep them divided and suppressed. For other groups, community preservation can often happen through default societal systems. So there's infrastructures and structures that have been set in place for a lot of these younger babies that are coming into the world, these baby white babies, these Mexican babies, these Asian babies, these Indian babies, these other non-black babies. They have a unified system that has already been set in place for them. And they have social contracts, unspoken rules that are off the heels of them uniting, that they are necessary. They sort of just, they're born into this fabric that has already been designed for them. And that's not for us. So for other groups, community preservation can often happen through default societal systems. But for black men, passive contentment is a luxury that cannot be afforded because the margin for error is razor thin. You'll have some black brothers that are like, well, we have to be content. We can't want too much for ourselves, right? Because that's a sin. We can't, you know, focus too much on the black community because that's selfish, right? You're talking about a population of human beings that have been subjected to centuries of trauma, murder, abuse, all ungodly, and who have to rebuild up their psychology. We're not talking about people who got to rebuild their houses after a hurricane. We're talking about people who have to rebuild and restructure their nervous system. And you're going to tell me that work is sinful and ungodly? We have to get out of this mentality that everybody is just like us. We're no different than everybody else. No, we're absolutely different. We're absolutely unique. We're absolutely set apart. Everybody didn't come here through slavery. Okay. Yeah, there were people who participated, but that doesn't necessarily mean their participation in save slavery from these different racial groups said anything about their culture as a collective. Okay. You can still come from a unified culture and be the individual who's the indentured slave, but that doesn't denote the reality that you're coming from a unified culture. So things that black men are faced with that are natural consequences of the unspoken rules in this world and these social contracts that have hindered the black man. This is the natural order of things that contributes and influences the division in the black community today and the suffering that we're dealing with today. Systemic erasure of emotional and physical protection. One of the most painful realities is the lack of societal empathy and ethical protection for black men, particularly when it comes to physical safety and the investigation of their deaths. So there's this suicide classification phenomenon that happens when a lot of, there's been, I want to say over, 70 cases since 2000 to 2025 of lynchings among the black community. And they're ruling many of these cases as a suicide, which hinders any further investigating to any foul play. It just kind of closes the case. So here it says the suicide classification phenomenon. Historically and in modern times, suspicious deaths and apparent hangings of black men have frequently been swiftly ruled as suicide by local authorities with minimal investigation, ignoring histories of racial tension, local threats, or physical evidence of a struggle. This acts as a systemic shield to prevent deeper investigations into potential homicides or hate crimes. This empathy gap. Sociological research consistently shows that black men are denied the victim status in the public eye. They are often viewed through a lens of inherent threat rather than vulnerability, which leads to less public outrage, fewer resources dedicated to solving crimes against them, and a lack of emotional support systems. Unrelenting economic and employment barriers. The systemic attempt to keep black men economically isolated directly fights against their ability to build stable communities. Economic independence is the bedrock of community unity. Yet black men face intense structural headwinds. The unemployment ratio, historically and continuing directly into 2026, the black unemployment rate remains stubbornly fixed at roughly double the white unemployment rate. For example, hovering around 7.3% compared to 3.7% for white workers. The education paradox. Even when black men play by the rules of societal advancement, the bias persists. Research from the Center for Economic and Policy Research shows that while black men hold higher rates of advanced degrees than some other minority demographics, their employment rate remains nearly 8 to 10 percentage points lower than similarly educated peers of other races. The soft skills and hiring bias. Resume audit studies consistently show that job applicants with black sounding names receive drastically fewer callbacks, even with identical qualifications, illustrating a persistent social bias that shuts black men out of economic networks. Structural housing bias and wealth extraction. Community unity requires geographic and economic stability. However, housing systems have historically and continuously prevented black men from anchoring their families and wealth. The widening home ownership gap. The gap between black and white home ownership in America is wider today, 44% to 75%, than it was in 1968 when the Fair Housing Act was passed. Lending discrimination, a 2025 housing report highlights that black applicants are far more likely to be rejected for mortgages or saddled with higher interest rates and fees than similarly qualified white buyers. Even wealthy Black families face barriers. In major metropolitan areas, high earning Black families are statistically more likely to be denied home loans than low earning white families. Okay. So the natural order of things, the natural course of things is not in our favor because we, us being the smaller percentage in this country, are faced against a large opposition. And it's so important. Racism is the religion of this world. And it's so important that we educate our young brothers on the realities of discrimination, of prejudice, systemic racism. You need to know who the enemy is, or else you're going to misplace the identification of the enemy on your brother. If I don't tell you or teach you, and the enemy is the system, the enemy is the system and those who opt in to perpetuating the system. It's the ideology, right? It's the spirit of this race hierarchy and individuals who participate in keeping this thing alive, giving this thing legs, even at the expense of other people's lives. And Black men need to understand this, and not only understand this, they need to use this knowledge as fuel for unifying and developing a united front in educating other younger brothers, bonding together, pulling your resources together, pulling your ideas together. And a lot of this education isn't happening. And that's why we see a lot of it, and it's not just because of that knowledge, because there's many other factors that play into it, but that's a large piece of it, in my opinion. So the devaluation of Black neighborhoods, homes in majority Black neighborhoods are consistently appraised at lower values, up to 23% less than identical homes in white neighborhoods, systemically systematically stripping wealth from Black families who try to invest in their communities. And I've been noticing on social media, a lot of people are like, why do they hate us so much? Why do they hate us so much? Because not only are you dealing with the enemy and the ideology of racism and white identity extremism in this world, you're also dealing with the spiritual enemy, the devil, right? The devil. And he is going to use and play off of these human beings with really low insight, high ungodliness and ignorance. He's going to use them like pawns to further his agenda. So not only does there need to be a social and economic education of the consequences of racism and white identity extremism, there also needs to be a spiritualized education of what's going on in the spiritual world and how these entities and these realities play off of the conditions that are currently present. There needs to be a relearning and a re-educating of what is going on. Black men uniting and unifying will be supernatural. It's going to exceed people who are on the outside looking in, their understanding. It's going to come off to them like we're breaking rules, just unifying. Man, these Black folks are coming together and they're not content. They're not satisfied with their lot. They're not grateful. That's why you'll hear a lot of rhetoric in some of these other communities where they're like, you niggas should be grateful. You were over in Africa butt naked running around building mud houses. You need to be grateful. You're over here in America. You need to be grateful. They're not even considering just the damage done psychologically to Black people and the impact of that damage on our connection and relationship to each other. They're just like, man, you guys got McDonald's, you got KFC, you guys getting, be grateful for what you have. Okay. So when they see us unifying and us coming together as Black men, it's going to blow the minds and it's going to rewrite the rules in a lot of ways that the world has set up to keep Black men sort of contained. We are going to have to break the rules to unify, because some Black folks, they can be very rule bound, very rule bound. right? Because a lot of them live in fear. A lot of brothers have to admit it. They live in fear. Fear. And they can be the biggest, the baddest, toughest people you've seen on the block, but they're no innocent from being driven by fear, afraid of things getting worse and getting, afraid of losing their, their belongings, or afraid of losing something that's important to them or value to them, or afraid of having to, a lot of black folks are afraid. They are afraid. And that's another thing. You're going to have to conquer your fear. You're going to have to overcome your fear as a brother to really take the community to the next level, because it's on us. Y'all, Miami ain't going to save us. Glorilla, Beyonce, they're not going to level up the black male unity in our community. They're not. And if you pay attention to brothers who opt out and they merge sort of with the world and the world's rules, they come off as the damn enemy. They're fighting against the brothers trying to do the right thing. This is how dangerous this thing is and how serious it is. So we're going to have to be rule breakers, right? In the world's eyes, we're going to have to be rebels to unify our brothers and to help heal and take our communities to the next level. It's not going to happen following the damn rules. It's not going to happen. If Jesus would have came to this earth and prioritized following the rules that were set for him by men on this world, nothing would have became of the work that he did. So we have to learn how to separate God's law and God's word, because to this world and the standards of this world, the Most High is a rebel. He's a rebel. When he comes back to bring justice and revenge on the enemies of his people, he's not coming here to follow your rules. You have to think about that. And it's not saying you got to be a criminal. It's not saying you got to be in the dark and just completely corrupted. It's just you got to be able to separate what's for you and your people to advance and what's of the world. That is so important. And I'm mindful I live in a world of opposites. So what's really not popular, what's really not important, that's going to get all the attention. And what's really important, that's not going to get any attention. So I'm mindful this is what the hand that we're dealt. So, and that's spiritual. You don't think the enemy knew what he was doing? You don't think he knew there were going to be some brothers that came to this world to try to unify our people in God's word and do the right thing? You don't think he set up traps and conditions to prevent that, even in the mindset of our community? You see what I'm saying? So, in a system designed to isolate, connection is a revolutionary act. When other groups unite, they are often riding the waves of existing societal infrastructure, shared generational wealth, favorable media representation, protective legal frameworks, and social safety nets. They can afford to be quiet or content because their baseline survival is not threatened by their lack of intense coordination. That's the difference. That's the difference. For black men, the baseline is different. The unspoken rules of society assume your isolation. If you are isolated, you are easily policed. If you are isolated, you cannot pool resources to buy back your neighborhoods. If you are isolated, your mental health struggles remain silent. For black men to look past the trauma, the systemic economic locks, the media driven division, and the lack of societal empathy, and to say, I see you, I value you, and I will protect you to another black man, that is supernatural. It means constructing a bridge using materials the world tried to deny you. It goes against the entire gravity of the social structure. But because the stakes are the literal survival and flourishing of the community, breaking those natural laws of isolation is the only way forward. It's the only way forward. It truly is. And that's really the purpose for me of this YouTube channel, is to leave knowledge and wisdom of my life experience. It's almost like a diary for me, for my son, and for other brothers who understand the brevity and the value of having knowledge of racism, white identity, extremism, the consequences, self love, having this knowledge and the importance of having this knowledge, because it can cost you it can save your life. And that's why I make these videos. For me, it wasn't about trying to get famous. It wasn't about getting rich. Because when you get rich and you get famous, now you open the door to submission of the dominant society. Now it's about you having to modify your behavior, your conversation and communication, and the intensive purposes of your channel to fit the contract. A lot of these famous YouTubers aren't going to be your redeemers. They might be able to finance. I'm not saying there's no value in their role. They might be able to finance and support brothers financially, but if they were to become a voice, it's going to cost them. It's going to cost them. So you even have to be careful with being too famous or being too locked in to the public sort of worldly grip, because then you're compromising your loyalty to your own community. Black men have to get back to believing in having loyalty to your community. You got to ask yourself, what's more important? Is it more important for me to be liked by these white folks and these non-black folks, and they sending me donations, they sending me money? Because then when that happens, now you set yourself up for a trap, because you can't say too much of this, you can't talk too much about the white identity extremism or the prejudice that some of these non-black cultures have embedded in their sort of like economies, because you're getting donations, you're getting financed, they're paying you basically to keep your mouth shut. But you'll go up there and you'll attack your brother, you'll attack other black men, and you will talk down on them because you've already sort of like reorganized your loyalty and your commitment, which is to the world. And the world ain't prioritizing you. Just because people send you money to your Cash App, or they send you money through Venmo or whatever the fuck, doesn't mean that they care about you and your culture and your community progressing and advancing. Don't get it twisted. And a lot of black brothers, man, especially our elders, man, they just sell out, man. They sell out, and they get on here. And when you also merge too much into the world, everything becomes doom and gloom. Oh, it's not going to get better. Oh, the world sucks. Oh, you notice people, black brothers, when they get so over identified with the world, and they don't know what group to, they lose that loyalty and commitment to their black brothers, and they start prioritizing these other racial groups. You notice how they fall into that doom and gloom talk. Oh, everything's bad, all the women are bad, everything fucking sucks, everything is meaningless. Why even try? You guys ain't no damn help to a black condition that's already regressing without any of that shit. One thing I can give credit for my people. See, I'm from Detroit, so I love black people. Even with me having all this success I do currently in counseling, and I've moved up the ladder, quote unquote, I'ma always be for my people. Period. Period. If I was about the world first and prioritizing other groups first over my own people, I probably would have got monetized a long time ago. But that's not what I'm about. That's not what I'm about, because I see what it's done to you other brothers, where you've sort of made the ultimate hyper focus the value of other groups in the whole world. And now you don't have any influence. Your influence is basically stunted to your people, because the shit you talking about ain't helpful. It's not helpful. You niggas talking like a lot of spoiled white folks talk and spoiled non-blacks talk. When you got everything you can ask for, you got your community backing you. You got the advantage in terms of just the dominant society and the influence. So you get spoiled. You get into that. That's their struggle. Oh man, these women. So, oh man, you can't trust people no more. You can trust people when your focus is on your damn community. It's brothers out there who doing the right thing and who doing the work. There's black women out there who love their black men and who are doing the right thing, who are righteous black women. But when you start getting into these other cultures and these other groups, oh, everything is all bad. The world is sucks. Everything's doom and gloom. Where's God? It's like, man, miss me with that shit. God is in these black people. All right. God is in this world and he's in the human beings who understand and who respect the fight that black people are doing against the enemy and against this structure of extremism and racism and the killing of innocent lives. Not all black people are criminal. Not all black men are gang bangers or thugs. And even if they are, that doesn't mean they're irredeemable. Because that's another thing that brothers do when they start rearranging their loyalty to other groups. It's like you become people in their own community become irredeemable. And then they start intellectualizing murders that happen against our people to make it seem like it was the black man's fault when clearly they were murdered for unrighteousness for the wrong reasons. And it's really no reason, but they were murdered. And you'll have these niggas who prioritize other racial groups and other ethnic groups because it's about the money for them. It's about the popularity. They're so damn insecure. A lot of you elder black brothers, you're so insecure, and then you'll find yourself twisting the facts of innocent brothers who lost their lives. Or maybe he was doing the wrong thing, or maybe he was doing. You're just some dirt bags, but you're not irredeemable. But the state of mind that you're in, is trash. It's trash, man. So that's why I have to be very intentional with YouTube because YouTube is a trap, and it's the new plantation. It's the new plantation economy. So you have to be very strategic. You have to have a strong sense of self, a strong commitment to your community. You have to have strong boundaries, ethics, and a strong relationship with God to not get consumed by this shit as a brother. I'm telling you, man. You guys see it, and the people who know. So I'm not gonna get up here and over explain or pull anybody on. The people who supposed to know, the people who this message is meant for, and they're probably not gonna reach a lot of you guys because your mind is in all the bullshit. But for those who is meant for, they know what the fuck I'm talking about. I've gotten feedback, I've gotten messages, I talk to people who watch and support my channel. They know what the hell is going on. So black men uniting, it's going to be supernatural. It's going to go against the rules and the social contracts and unwritten rules and worldly limits that have been placed on mankind. It's going to be a rule breaker for us to come together and unify as black men. And we're not going to do it playing by the rules of our oppressors and our enemies. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And a lot of you brothers need to understand the difference between God's law and worldly rules. And you may have to make some sacrifices. We got to grow out of this comfort shit. US go to war in Iraq, they go to war in Afghanistan, they go to war in all these different countries. Do you think these motherfuckers are obeying the rules 24/7? Do you think America became the superpower it became because these motherfuckers were so rule abiding? You better think about that, man. So